Alrighty, so let me go ahead and share my screen again. One of the bits of feedback we got last time is being able to use PowerPoint as kind of a way to signpost what we're doing if you're referring to this content at a later date through the recordings. Alrighty. So today we have our Alphas Hours. As I mentioned, we're going to kick things off with what's new from Semantic Kernel. I still haven't figured out how to get the lobby to just auto accept people. So if folks don't mind adding people as they come in, that'd be great. So on the Semantic Kernel side, we have one main public thing that is new that I want to make sure folks are aware of. One of the things that we kind of discussed with the community is one of our goals is to provide a non-experimental chat agent so that y'all can start building it inside of your production use cases. One of the challenges with our current agent implementation and our experimental agent package is that it takes a very heavy dependency on the assistance API. And as part of our process of further abstracting it, let's just go ahead and open up the link. As part of our effort to start abstracting it, one of the first steps is our team is building an agent, a chat completion agent, just using the basic APIs inside of Semantic Kernel without using the assistance API. And our hope is that you would be able to build an entire agent on your own using any model, whether that's an OpenAI model, maybe it's Llama, maybe it's Gemini in the future. So if you have interest in agents, definitely take a look at this PR, provide feedbacks. I see there's some feedback already from the community. So definitely let us know what you think so that we can continue to make it better. Okay. The other big updates that I would share with this group, okay, is we are also working on adding some additional connectors. So we have a community member that's working on the Gemini connector for Semantic Kernel. I believe that's getting close to being done. And internally, we have some projects within Microsoft where we need some text to audio and audio to text features. Those connectors should also be coming soon to Semantic Kernel in the next week or so. So keep an eye out for that. And then the last thing I want to share that's coming new from Semantic Kernel, I think I mentioned that we're also working on improving our memory connectors. As we've kind of started to scratch the surface, we are seeing that our current abstractions just aren't up to par with where we would like them to be. So we are going to start making some more dramatic changes to them. We'll have some ADRs to collect feedback from the community. But one of the main changes that we plan on making to our memory connectors is making them feel and behave more like search connectors. Because at the end of the day, what you're using these memory connectors for is to perform RAG. You're trying to retrieve some information to give to the LLM so that it can provide answers to the user. And that retrieval process, the R in RAG, is really just a search, right? You can search on a vector database, but we also expect that you should be able to search on Google search, Bing search, maybe even Amazon's product search, right? And so we believe that by making our abstractions more like search connectors, you'll be able to, of course, connect to memory connectors, but also the plethora of search APIs that already exist today. So that's something to get excited about, and hopefully in the next couple weeks we'll have an ADR for all of you to start providing us feedback. Okay, so that is what's new from the Semantic Kernel side. I'm going to take a pause there and see if there's any questions on the new stuff, and then if there aren't, we can move to the more formal Q&A. So any questions on the new stuff? Is nothing too dramatic or exciting. So okay, cool. Alrighty. I guess the other update I'd share is we're also working towards our V1 launches of both Python and Java. It looks like Python might be on schedule. which is always a nice thing to hear when you're working with software. So we are targeting end of month, early March for a beta release of our Python library. Okay. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and move to the Q&A. And let's start with Stacia. Hopefully I got your name close to being right. What's your question?
Yeah, so my team has asked me to follow up about this issue that I just sent in the chat. It's about having streaming of responses in the memory, the semantic memory service. And the person who responded to this question said that it was very high on the priority list. So my team just wanted to have an update, and you can see at the bottom here, my teammate, yeah, rolled in. Added some suggestions, perhaps. So he was just wondering if those were helpful and if we could maybe get an update on how this is going. I think it's would be beneficial for a lot of people.
For sure, for sure. I don't know. Do we have Devis on the call? This is a bit early for him. Just want to double check. I want to take that as a no since he hasn't jumped on. So I have, I guess, a couple things to say about this. So one, I'll follow up with Devis to see if he's been able to kind of take a look at your requests. I don't know on top of my head how high priority this is or where it is on his backlog. What I will say though is the kernel memory project. And this goes for the entire community. We are treating it as more of an experimental project, more of a research project that allows us to kind of test different memory paradigms or features so that we can ask those features from other product groups like Azure AI Search and have them actually bake it in.
Hmm.
Because of that, we are recommending folks to not use the kernel memory project as within like production cases because it's more of a research project and we're trying
Yeah.
to communicate that through the version numbers. Um, so that's one. And that's mainly because Devis is the primary person that's working on it. I guess
Hmm.
I guess question for you, how deep are you into using kernel memory? Like, are you at the point where like the only option is to get streaming support? Have y'all looked at other memory solutions like Llama Index? Can you tell me more about kind of what your situation is?
Yeah, so we don't have anything in production using it yet. We're still kind of researching it as well. And other services like OpenAI use the streaming, and it's pretty user friendly, and we like that. I don't think we went too deep into the Llama one that you mentioned, but we can definitely start looking there. You mentioned that you'll follow up with the developer.
Yes. So I'll follow up with Devis. Some inside baseball. We are Devis is starting to work on some other projects. So he used to be full time on kernel memory. This
Hmm.
is now part of his kind of responsibilities. So velocity on kernel memory, you might be seeing it slow down a bit. So that's one reason I'm just like
Mhm.
uh, trying to hedge my bets a bit and try to see if there's another equivalent project or similar project that you'd be able to take advantage of
Hmm.
because I would hate to see you kind of be blocked by this for. It looks like you filed this back in October. I don't want you to wait multiple more months for something that may or may not be coming.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So the other options that you mentioned, could you repeat them again, please?
Yeah, so the one that a lot of the industry is moving towards, I think this is the other reason why we're starting to put kernel memory on kind of a back burner is
Hmm.
a project called Llama Index. It is written in Python. We're in conversations with uh, other parts of Microsoft to see if we can get a .NET port of Llama Index, since we know that's important for folks.
Hmm.
The reason why everyone loves this thing so much is they have a ton of different ways of loading in data. They're kind of state of the art in terms of doing different chunking, different ways of structuring your data. So they have like ways of modeling your data both as vector stores and using some node graph structures. So lots of it can get very overwhelming really quick, but it does come with a lot of power, and depending on what your needs are, this could be a good solution for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll bring that back to my team. Thank you for suggesting that.
Perfect. All righty. And it looks like they're getting close to 1+0 at least. If that 9 means anything. Okay. That was a great question. That was a great question.
Yeah,
And I
thank
guess on the semantic kernel side, because Llama Index is so popular, we are trying to find better ways of integrating more natively. So you should expect to see that come from the semantic kernel team over time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Jose?
Hello. So I put the camera on. So I have a question regarding handlebars. So I think I created like 3 issues yesterday. One of them is I'm having trouble inside executing a function inside the planner, inside the handlebars template. So I call a function or a prompt function that generates JSON, and it does not generate it. I can share the link. So sorry about that.
Well, I remember here they are.
Yes, there are a few, right? So for example, here I have this function that generates me these products list, like 5 different products. But then if I use it inside the planner, well, it inside the handlebars prompt, it generates like a bullet point list. So
right.
I don't know if it's something is wrapping the function in there or not. So
Yes. So we have a similar problem with the sequential planner, and basically what ends up happening is because the planner has a final step where it gets it to an LM, and the LM kind of summarizes it. It removes or kind of takes away some of the structure from that final output. So I assigned it to myself because this is going to require some a spec design. So I'm going to be creating that and then giving it to the development team. What we've done in the past is, and I'll probably start a conversation here to get better feedback. What we've done in the past is provide some sort of option to say, hey, don't have the LM summarize the information, whatever the last function was, just send that back to the user. And we believe that will be kind of a good way of supporting that scenario. I guess a question to you is it always the very last thing that's being run? I think it's a little bit more complex with handlebars because it could be any number of the functions that are called. Yep. That's the right final one. So I'm curious if you've given it any thought of what you think is the preferred ideal solution to this thing.
I think this composition is, for me, fantastic when it works, right? But this is breaking, and it's a kind of a black box, so I don't know what's really happening in there. So there is no way for me to know what comes in, what is the process, and how this gets composed. So there's no way to debug this. So that, for me, was the biggest trouble, right? Thank God that we have the office hours.
Yeah. So what I guess what's odd to me. So this is with the handlebars planner, right? Because the
this is a handlebars prompt, right? So I'm executing.
Got it.
So I'm doing a prompt function with that, which has this handlebar syntax.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood. Okay, so you're using the handlebars prompt, so you're not actually using the handlebars planner. Okay, let me edit this real quick.
I mean, if I use the handlebars planner at the moment, there are 2 more issues that are behind it, but you don't want to get there.
Yeah, we'll get to those. Okay, so this one, okay, I understand. Because basically, this is the results. It goes to LM. It summarizes it. Okay, and what we need to do, okay. This one, I think this is solvable today.
Oh, wow.
I believe this is solvable today.
Mhm.
I'll work on getting some sample code written later today to get you blocked. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to use that.
Fantastic. Fantastic,
yeah.
because otherwise I'll have to execute directly a prompt just for generating the JSON and have the JSON input inside.
Yep.
Because I think the beauty of that, if I get everything done in the same handlebars template, that's a lot nicer, don't you think?
Yes. So yeah, I will get you unblocked and we should be good to go.
All right, thanks.
And then these, this one in particular, it looks like there's like a valid syntax and it's just failing. So we've assigned that to our engineer to take a look at it. For my own testing, um, we've had some issues with the piping syntax, like rename things, and it gets kind of confused. So I'm thinking that might be the issue, and if so, we'll get it resolved. Or if it's something else, we have Teresa that should be coming up for error in the next few days, and we'll be able to investigate this a little bit more. And then for handlebars generates a buggy plan. Kind of again, this piping stuff kind of confuses the LLM. So the way we fixed this previously is we introduced logic bias to basically prevent the AI from ever using these pipe things. We're going to give that a whirl and see if that makes it a little bit more predictable. And we'll probably have to follow up with you to see if that makes a meaningful difference or not. But this goes for the entire community. If you have trouble with any of our planners, in particular handlebars planner, please go ahead and generate issues. It's very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very difficult to build a generic planner that works on all scenarios. So for all of you to provide us issues and tell us where it starts to fail helps us just harden it over time. And I guess if you do have time, anyone in the community, if you do run into issues, if you want to create a PR that creates a test case for your particular scenario, that in particular would be incredibly helpful. Because one of the challenges that we're starting to see as well is as we make improvements to fix one person's problem, we might see a regression for someone else. And so the more test cases that we can just add to our semantic kernel repo, the more confident we can feel about making some of these structural changes without fear of breaking someone else. So if you have a key scenario using one of our handlebars planners, please add it as a test case so we don't accidentally break you. Cool. And then
Thank
Jose,
you.
do you have any other questions or comments on?
That's it. Thank you.
Great. All righty. Who's first? Zhang, let's start with you.
Hello. Hi. Today my question mainly is about the function calling stepwise planner that we're using. So first of all, I remember that last week when I came here, you mentioned that you guys are actually working on some enhancements on this, the function calling that probably provide some more features or functionalities to improve the performance and provide more flexibilities and all that. So I see that you have made a new release lately. Just wonder like if there's anything on it from it. So that's one question. And then another question is about usage that I'm trying to implement with the function calling stepwise planner. So, and I have pasted my question in the chat.
Perfect. Okay, so let's tackle the first one.
Yeah.
So we found that the work was a little bit more involved than we thought, but I'm going to go ahead and do the PR so you can start keeping a track of it yourself.
Okay.
Is this the right one? Or maybe did she finish it? Let's see. Is closed. Oh, it might have. Let's see. What was merged? So this was merged in 18 hours ago.
Oh,
It's not in the NuGet package, but this should help with some of the improvements. So I'm going to go
I
ahead.
see that's a handlebar planner.
I believe there was like multiple planner fixes.
Okay.
That some of them were for handlebars and some of them were for, I think the first three were for all three.
Okay.
So that you can check out. This is, as I said, since it was just merged in, it'll be part of our next NuGet release next week.
Okay.
The other thing.
So do you have like a special day of the week that you make release?
It's typically Mondays. Mondays. I think you're still waiting on this second PR, which is for automatic tool calling controls. I think one of the things that we talked about, like you wanted like parallelized function calling.
Yeah.
One of the challenges that we faced is what we wanted to do is take all of the function calling stepwise planner logic and have it point to our current automatic function calling implementation. Use the same code path and take advantage of all the enhancements that we've done for the automatic function tool calling. One of the challenges is the planner requires some additional behavior to the automatic function tool calling that just doesn't exist. And so what Gina has been working on is coming up with a proposal to improve the functionality of the automatic function tool calling so it works with the planner. We have a proposal that we're now marching towards. Let's see if we can open this up, view file. We are basically going with option 3. We're adding some additional like callback behaviors. So Gina's finalizing that, and I would expect by next week that'll be completed and merged in. So you're probably looking at the, let's just pull up the calendar. You're probably looking at the 19th for when it will be our NuGet package.
Okay.
And then your second question.
It's a more specific one. I can summarize. And so basically, we're trying to insert user context into the prompt so that the planner will be able to answer questions like, am I the person on call? Is my team impacted? The me and my team information. And what I did is that currently the function calling stepwise planner allows a supplementary prompt as a system prompt. So I add in there, tell them that my user ID is this, my team is certain, is team A in all kinds of combination, or tell me like user is the request user is this, request team is that, and all that. And then try to get the planner to answer question. Like after it gets like information from we're doing incident management, so like from all the incidents and outages, and the planner actually comes up with a pretty good plan. It says it's going to use a kernel function we created to get all the people that's on call for the incident, and then I'll compare and then use the information you provided, your team information to see whether your team is on call. It sounds pretty good. But at the end, I'll say like 70% of the time it gives wrong answer. You will say, yes, your team is on call, which is not. And then your team is like the on-call team. And then you are the on-call person. So it's pretty crazy. Like the conversation I have between me and LM. Like eventually I was like, who am I? And then he was saying that you are like some entire different person and all that. So and then I try to see like whether it's because the information I give is too generic, because along all the information it collects, you probably see a lot of mention of teams and users in the context, but it doesn't know like which user is different from the other. It's the requesting users. So I try to add the prompt as like requesting users in this, and And I even say, like, if I ask about user identity, who am my team is this. I mean, like I try some combination, but with no success. So I'm here to ask for help.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're doing all the right things. We might have to set up a one-on-one session so that we can take a look at your prompts and
Okay.
how they're working.
Uh-huh.
I guess for other folks on the call, one thing I have noticed is when you're working on something as complex like this, where you have some initial information like, hey, my identity is 123 and my team identity is ABC, and then the LLM calls like 5 additional functions to get all the required information. Because the initial context is at the very beginning and it's very far away from the response of the LLM, it becomes almost like a less important.
Okay.
And so one technique that I've used in order to reinforce the importance of something so key as to who I am and who my team is either call it at the very end or call it in both places. Just say, hey, like, remember, I'm not all these other people that you just pulled information from. I am 1, 2, 3. I'm not 5, 6, 7. That might help. But we'll have to play around with it.
So how do you like me to proceed, like get on the one-on-one?
Yeah, so let's I think you're in Microsoft, so you should be able to use some time with my calendar. I guess for other folks on the community, if your problem does get as complex as this, I can try to open up time, and once we have a community PM, we'll be able to do some more one-on-ones. But yeah, let's jump on a call and I can take a look at your code and we can start figuring out what's going on.
Okay, thank you. And when you say that you call it at the very end, how do you do that? Because there is only one place in the function calling stepwise planner to give a prompt.
So this is probably where I will recommend y'all not use the actual function calling stepwise planner. So you correctly identified, like when you use the function calling stepwise planner, you get this a single input for the goal, right? And that's it. Right? The beauty of using the automatic function calling is you just get a little bit more control over how the prompt is created. And I think for your cases, because where you're running into limitations with the stepwise planner, I think y'all need that extra level of control in order to have more system prompts, more user prompts, etc. And in this case, maybe inject a user prompt at the very, very end. And I think after we meet, if we are able to get it working, I think this would be a great case study to share with this audience, maybe next week, as like, okay, this is what we had before, this is why it didn't work, and this is how we were able to make it better. So
you're suggesting us move to automatic function calling or some other planner from this one?
Potentially. I'm not going to say definitively.
Yeah,
no.
Potentially.
Potentially. Yeah.
So automatic function calling.
Yes. Because I guess the value, or just pull up an example real quick.
Yeah, so I have document and samples, yeah.
Trying to think, where do I want to go for samples? Let's go here. Let's just do a quick time check, and then we'll move on to the next person. Actually, yeah, we'll follow up later. But the one, yeah, when you move to automatic function, that's the same technology that the stepwise planner is using. You just get to use the raw pieces of it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look it up and I'll book some time with you. Thank you.
Perfect. And then there's some questions Jose asked, but isn't the function calling stepwise planner a better planner than the raw function calling? It's probably worth understanding like what the stepwise planner is doing. The way it's better is we do an initial prompt at the beginning of the stepwise planner that says, hey, come up with a plan. We force it to like come up with a plan so that when it does function calling, it's not just like haphazardly trying a bunch of stuff, right? If you need additional power though, you kind of have to break class and you do have to use kind of those raw APIs. If you still need that planning generation at the beginning, you may have to like recreate it and then use some of the more advanced capabilities of automatic function calling. So I'm really thinking of this as like Zing has like a very specific advanced case and may need to break glass and go the more advanced route. Okay, cool. Yes, exactly. So Jose says, so applying COT to the function calling by elaborating plan, the rest is the same. Okay, let's go ahead and go to Noah, who has his hand raised for your question.
Yes, hi. I was just wondering if there were plans to integrate any functionality around semantic caching.
Semantic caching. Okay, let's share my screen so that we have a little marker. Okay. Yes, caching is important. When you say semantic caching, I'm assuming you mean like, hey, we're going to store some responses in like a vector database or something like that. And
Yeah, there's a sample a
yeah.
repo. It's got like 6,000 stars, and they've started some integrations. But and I've heard people ask about it with Semantic Kernel, but wondering, yeah, if caching. I mean, I guess
So,
there's
yes.
maybe different types of caching possibly. So specifically, like with embeddings.
Yes. So it is on our radar. The thing that we're trying to finalize right now is we have an experimental hooks feature called filtering that allows you to say, hey, when a prompt is about to be invoked, you can make it do something different. We're wanting to leverage that to support semantic caching. Oh, hey, you get this request. Hey, instead of sending it to the LLM, we'll first do a search through our connectors and check things and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that we need to finish before we ship a feature like semantic caching is actually improve our memory connectors. So I mentioned at the top of the hour that our current memory abstractions have a lot to be desired, and which that being able to actually talk to the vector database is a key requirement before you can actually start using it for things like caching or searching or what have you. So I say all this stuff to say, yes, we are aware. It's one of probably the most important things that we need to ship so that customers can have a faster experience that ultimately costs less. But we first need to sequence kind of finalizing our filter so it's no longer experimental, improving our connectors to our memory connectors, which we expect to happen over the next couple months, and then delivering semantic caching. In terms of like timelines on when all this stuff would land, it's probably longer than you're hoping. We're probably talking about a
It's
couple
not
months.
tomorrow.
It's not tomorrow, but I would hope by Microsoft build we have something in this space that we can share with the community.
Then I
In
guess
the
I'm just curious
meantime,
if you
go ahead.
suggest prototyping caching in any way, or just not, because it would be too much effort to try to make it work with.
Well, so that was going to be where I was going to go next. Like making this work isn't the hardest thing in the world, right? The only reason why we don't want to ship is because we know it's going to break as soon as we make all these changes. But if you want to start prototyping with it, I think you already kind of have a sound understanding of how it works.
Yeah.
Let me actually just pull up. I'll pull up the sample for filters.
I'm more working with other people and talking about it and like, well, what tools would we use?
Yeah, so the way I would architect it, just so that you're aware.
Thank you so much.
So we are looking at kind of our filters thing, and you can see how we're like adding these different filters. We look at them. The first one has some logic for like when the function is about to be invoked and when it has been invoked. Similar, we have some around prompts. And so what I would expect is, I'm trying to think, where would be the best place for this to happen? So first, you actually need to cache the results. So this event happens at the very end of when the function has been done, has done all their stuff, right? So here you'll be able to grab information of like what was the actual response from the LLM and what was the input that was initially provided. And so this would allow you to create an embedding based on the user's initial query, and then you could save the LLM's response as the content, right? So inside of here, that's kind of the saving, the caching of the information. And then in terms of retrieval, the way you would make that work is with the on-prompt rendered event. This is the step right before the LLM actually gets your prompt that you're sending over. And so in this section, what you would be able to do is make a query to your vector database, check if there's any embeddings that are close enough. And if so, what you could do is cancel the operation to the LLM, have it return back the content from your vector database, and then you're kind of good to go. So we have the hooks in place, and I think the work that y'all would need to prototype out is just kind of that logic of saving that information into a vector database and retrieving it as part of the right before the LLM call is actually called.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hopefully that helps you get started.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, I guess my ask to you is if you run into any issues with our current filters that prevents you from making this work end to end, obviously create an issue because this is so important to me and all the rest of the community and especially enterprise customers. If you do run into issues, that is a sign that we might have the wrong abstractions in place for our filters. And I would want to get that fixed before they're made non-experimental. So yes,
For sure.
great
We'll keep you
work.
in the
No.
loop. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that we can make it not be broken.
Thanks.
Okay, cool. Oh. All righty. So let's just take a look at some of the other questions in the chat. Again, if you'll have anything, feel free to raise your hands or leave it in the chat. Sarah asks, sorry if I missed it, but is there a timeline for when automatic function calling will be available in Python? So let's just go share my screen real quick, and we'll go back here. Timelines for Python. So if you have any questions regarding the timelines of Python, there's two resources that I just recommend to folks. One is the last blog post that we have is kind of our overall plan for V1 for the Python SDK. The first timeline that we're going to try to march towards is March, where we're going to have this beta. Unfortunately, if you actually read through all this stuff, you'd see that automatic function calling is not part of this initial beta release, or at least it's not planned. If we take a look, it's kind of in this additional changes coming soon. We have enabled automatic function calling. So that does mean it'll be post-March. My current gut is telling me maybe like late March, early April we'll have it, since it's kind of like the key feature of Semantic Kernel that makes it so powerful. If you are interested in like keeping track of our progress and where we're headed with Python and where we are with our backlog, you can always check out our public backlog. And I think since this one has mentioned in the blog post, we can actually do a quick search. It's currently ranked 23 right now. So you can kind of watch as we burn down and get to this particular item. If this looks pretty low to you, don't worry too much. A lot of these other items are just like, we're going to add tests and some documentation and some other basic things, right? So I wouldn't expect this one to take too long to actually get to so that we can ship it. I think once this is in, I'll finally be able to get really proud and excited about Python because it'll finally be useful for the vast majority of folks. That's a great question. And then Sarah also follow-ups. The stepwise planner is very powerful, but a big pain point for me is when using it is that there's only one place to put my prompt, which is the goal. And it's a bit difficult to debug because I don't see the actual error messages. Yes. So this is kind of building off of what Zhang was experiencing, where like right now there's not a really good escape hatch or ability to do even more with the stepwise planner without moving over to automatic function calling. In the short term, you may need to move to automatic function calling to get that extra level of visibility, to get that extra power. I would say, though, we are trying to make improvements to our planners so that you do have more control and more visibility. Probably the biggest part is right now, both of our handlebars and stepwise planner, they have these hidden prompts that are kind of, I've been told, Matthew, they feel like black boxes. We don't know what the hell these prompts are doing or how they're constructed, or if we do want to change it, how to actually do that. And so we're going to be adding knobs probably over the next week or so that allow you to actually change the underlying prompts within these planners. We believe that's going to give you additional flexibility and control to add additional contextual information like Zhang wants. And Sarah, it sounds like you might also have some additional information that you want to pass in besides goals. So that's huge. And in terms of being difficult to debug, don't see the actual error message. I think someone filed an issue kind of related to this, or at least got us thinking about it. Today, inside of the planner, we have a bunch of try catches that gracefully handle errors that come in from functions. But the challenge is, maybe you don't want it to gracefully handle. Maybe you want your planner to ultimately fail so that you can actually do something about it. So we are looking at kind of the erroring story within our planners to see if we need to make improvements to that. I think we went too far in the direction of like, oh, we're going to handle everything for everyone. And we took a little bit too much control from you as a developer. So that one, you could do some debugging, or if you want to do your own custom error handling, you could do so. So we don't have any plans there yet, but we do know it's a problem. And we'll probably be prioritizing it for the next couple sprints. Cool. All righty. So I'm going to do a quick time check. So we're 10 till hours, so we have about 10 more minutes. So if folks have any other questions, again, feel free to raise your hands, leave a comment in the chat.
Matthew, Copilot
yeah.
chat, any update on that?
Great question. So we've been looking for a team in Microsoft that could eventually kind of take it on and help move it over to V1. We have not been successful. We've also seen kind of the usage or interest in chat Copilot kind of decrease. That is kind of a self-fulfilling thing because we haven't necessarily invested in it. So that's understandable to me. So we will likely end up deprecating it soon. Before I do that, I do want to make sure that there is a graduation story or something else that folks are using. What I'm currently recommending to folks right now is the Azure AI in a box solution that shows how to use Semantic Kernel with bot framework.
Okay.
But one of the challenges there's some sort of limitation that we're working with that team to get addressed first. I'm going to go ahead and share that. I guess the follow-up question for you, did y'all end up deploying it to production? Is that kind of where y'all at, or were y'all hoping to use it? Where were you at with your journey with Chat Copilot?
I mean, nothing much. Since beginning, we kind of not following that project. So recently start following before V1, right? And then everything is basically changed, right? So it's like, I mean, shall we kind of go ahead with that, or shall we kind of totally not looking at that? Because that is a good reference project for us, right? But since that is not maintained, so it's very hard to follow and change actually. for that.
Yeah, if you're starting new and you're trying to figure out like what are some reference projects to follow, I would not recommend looking at that project because it is using pre V1. And as you called out, we had a lot of breaking changes. I would highly recommend checking out the A in the box link that I just shared. That's probably kind of the easiest and best sample that we have today. And I'm working with the engineering team to build out some samples that show some more complex dependency injection scenarios, so that you can take advantage of that. Those are where the main questions I'm getting from the community today is how to use dependency injection with Semantic Kernel. So keep an eye out. That should be live in the next week or so. In the meantime, check out AI in a box.
Okay, some other repo you are saying will be live?
So it's already live. I dropped a link in the chat.
Yeah, this is there, right? This I am seeing since quite some time. This repo I am following.
Oh, you are following. Okay, great.
Yeah. Any other repo?
Any other repo? Let me bring in. What are you looking for? How sophisticated of a sample are you looking for?
Yeah, this one is good. I mean, whatever AI in box, right? Because this is what we are looking. It should integrate with bot and then Microsoft Team. And this sample around this only, right? I mean, is there any more samples and something like that?
But okay, so it's not like this one's sufficient. You just want some more samples. I would say, let me look around. I know there are some samples that the community has built that we can share. In fact, if anyone on this call has repos that they'd like to share, drop them in the chat. I will start compiling a better list of samples, and then next week I can share them with the community.
Sure, thank you.
Iskander, you have your hand raised.
Hi, Matthew. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Nice. So I'm not sure if this has been asked before, but we were working with memory, and when you use save reference async, you have to pass in a bunch of parameters in, right? Such as description and text. And the problem that we had is that when you search in the memory result, you don't get the text back. It always comes back as blank, as an empty string. So I was wondering if if it's a bug or if you guys know about it, or if it's supposed to work like that.
It doesn't sound like it's supposed to work like that. If you can create an issue for us so that we can follow it,
Okay.
we are. One of the complaints that I have and I want to see change as part of our kind of refactor of all the memory pieces is just way too complex. So as you kind of mentioned, and for others on the call, to actually save in memory, we require like all this information that isn't always required for all scenarios. And so when you retrieve it, it's not always clear what you get back. As part of improving those abstractions, we're going to be reducing quite significantly the number of required fields and making a lot more things optional. And then when you retrieve it, again, making it more like a simple search query. So you don't just get like a single string object when you search with the Google API, you actually get a JSON payload that has some more information that you can drill into, right? So that's the direction that we want to move. We are aware of deficiencies. This one's new to me. So yes, please go ahead and create an issue so that we can follow up on it. What we are recommending to customers today is if you frankly don't want to get too angry at the current abstractions and angry at me, what I've seen a lot of success folks doing is they just create their own plugin that talks directly to the Azure AI SDK, or if you use another vector memory store, those SDKs. It's not that difficult to kind of get it wiring up. It's more work than we as a Semantic Kernel team want you to do, right? That's why we want to improve these abstractions, but it is a decent way of getting yourselves unblocked in the short term.
Okay, sounds good, thanks.
For sure. And then Jose has the questions. Will the plugin mode change? Now we can wrap any plugin into an OpenAI service. Is that going to stay? Do you mind coming off mute and just I don't think I follow.
So basically, we are going OpenAI agnostics, at least on the agent story. I'm wondering about the OpenAI plugin mode, if that's going to
The
change or not.
auto invocation thing, right?
Yeah, so we wrap it into a Azure function kind of service that we can run local or deploy it, and then we can attach it to OpenAI, for example.
So our abstractions of what a plugin is, that's not going to change. And as there's other models that support tool and function calling, like I know there's a llama flavor, we plan on just like making sure all that just magically works, right? So from you as a dev, the abstractions that are non-experimental in Semantic Kernel are not going to change, and we are going to do the hard work of figuring out how to actually make it work with these other models. There are not a lot of models that support function calling today, but we are seeing the populations of them grow as people try to play catch up with OpenAI.
Cool.
Right.
I had
And
another
then the other
question.
yeah, how is progress inside of Microsoft with semantic kernel adoption? So I met with the VS Code team yesterday, and they're able to actually see within Microsoft how many people are using different projects.
Nice.
And they showed me like back in November, they're like, Matthew, this is what we pulled before, and we ribbed you a bit, like, you need to do better, right? And then they showed me what it was today as of yesterday, and we've easily 10x the number of projects within Microsoft that are using semantic kernel.
Nice.
What I'm particularly excited about is as teams are starting to want to have AIs actually perform actions, so the kind of the function calling behavior.
Yes.
Semantic kernel is the best SDK out there, especially in .NET, that makes that possible. And so a lot of teams are saying, okay, now that we want AI to do something productive instead of just summarizing text and responding to users, we need
Nice.
kernel. So that is the main thing that's driving usage to our platform. And I kind of expect the same thing for the broader .NET community. Most
Cool.
things that have been developed today are just like simple RAG problems, but as you want automation, something like semantic kernel is going to be key.
And I have a follow-up question on that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
If I want to do actions, and probably you know what I asked that, like for example, I want to send an email or read a text or upload something to, I don't know, SharePoint. What is the best way to do that? So for example, there are many actions that need to be done in a concrete set of steps. Would you use a planner? Would you use an agent that handles all, a separate agent that knows how to do that? Or what's the best way to do a complex set of steps and ensure that everything is handled to them properly?
So it all depends on how deterministic the steps are. So I'd say like if it's the same steps in the same order every single freaking time, write it as code where you're like explicitly calling the APIs one after the other, and maybe you mix in some generative AI for some steps like, oh, populate the description or fix this code or what have you, right? That I think works for a lot of the scenarios that we imagine today. As we do our research, we find that there are some plans that can do slight deviations where we do need the AI to kind of have a little bit of ability to improv, for lack of a better term, right? And so we are starting to use a similar pattern as our stepwise function calling planner, where at the very beginning we ask it to create a plan. But instead of having the AI come up with a plan that then invokes a bunch of functions, we say, hey, you are in the create email for boss plan. These are the general steps that you should take, and then give it all the functions so that it can start to call, right? So that's a way of saying, hey, AI, I want you to follow this general outline of steps. You don't always have to follow it to a T, but here's the general outline. Here's the functions you can use, and then the AI can accomplish the user's tasks.
Thanks.
Okay, cool. So we are at time. I'm just taking a look. It looks like we got through all the questions. Again, if there's questions that you have outside of office hours, message us on Discord. Mention me if I miss it for whatever reason. And you can also use the office hours email to contact us. Alrighty. Well, thank all of you, and I'll see y'all next week. Alrighty. Cheers.